This is no longer a live stream. Live stream is going on. Why is it here? Shh, Krish. It's gonna be on. Yeah, it's on.
Hello, Vinay.
Yes, Shailaja, Hari Om.
Hari Om, all good?
Yes, very good.
Okay, so good evening, namaste, and welcome all of you to this evening's conversation with Vinay. Please leave your comments so that we know you are here. And while you do that, let me just introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Shailaja Menon, and I have been in the field of yoga for over 20 years now. I began my journey in Coimbatore, India with integral yoga. And then I continued my journey here with my teacher Manoj Kaimal in Malaysia. So along the way, I became an author with the book Yoga Shakti in 2018. And I began these conversations during the lockdown primarily to really share authentic information about yoga as well as related fields which I feel can help all of us. So with these conversations, I hope to share genuine, authentic information so that all of us, right, I mean including the people that we talk to and the people listening, are inspired to make positive shifts in their lives, to not just go through these challenging times but to grow through these challenging times with grace and strength, and to use this time in our lives and these conversations for personal transformation. So, well being, which is really the state of positivity, inspiration, good cheer, benevolence, and radiance, is a keen interest for me. And I have realized over the years that ultimately our life is defined by our perspective. It is a story we tell ourselves and make up along the way. So, the manner in which we view our life, our perspective, is of utmost importance. And philosophy helps us shape our perspective in the best possible manner that supports our journey through the imparting of wisdom, faith, courage, and incisive clarity. So, let me just introduce our esteemed speaker and guest for today. Vinay is an established philosopher, thinker, and self management expert. He plunged into full time study of Vedanta at an early age of 16. His teachings are backed by over 30 years of full time study and research to practical application in day to day living. His inspiring oration translates complex Vedic principles into simple practical tools for living. His appeal lies in the presentation of these truths with absolute precision, effortless ease, and consummate wit. His tireless work in India and abroad has captivated and inspired people to commit themselves to a higher ideal and transform their lives to be more purposeful. His multitasking abilities, combined with his devotion, dedication, commitment, has comprehensively laid the wisdom foundation. Being an athlete, he regularly participates in marathons besides a daily schedule of yoga and badminton. And his passion for mountain trekking took him on a recent trip on a 9-day trek in Nepal to the famous Annapurna base camp. Above all, Vinayji stands as a testimony to the youth for dynamic living of higher values. So lovely to see so many people tuning in. There's Krishji, Mini, there's Vijay Ramesh, I think, who's saying hello to you, Vinayji. Must be your students from Hyderabad. There's my cousin Prakash there. So wonderful to see all of you, and really thank you for coming in. I'd really like this session to be interactive. So do feel free to post your comments, write whatever resonates with you, and also ask questions, which we will really try to take up before we end the session. So, on a more personal note, talking about Vinayji, he has been my Vedanta teacher for many years. During the years that he spent in Malaysia, teaching classes both in my yoga studio as well as in my home. And he truly exemplifies the spirit of the Shastras that he teaches, having entered the spiritual arena at the tender age of 16 and continuing with his sadhana till today from waking up at 4 a.m. every morning for the last 30 years to living the scriptures in his everyday dealings. So it is truly an honor to have this conversation with you, Vinay. So I'm going to start with the first question. You entered the field of spirituality at the age of 16. What was it that attracted you to this field? Because really, I mean, at 16, kids are still, I mean, I have a 13-year-old and they're still into video games and, friends and hanging out. So, I mean, it's really amazing that at this young age, you went into this area.
First of all, Shailaja, lovely to see you and connect with you. And Hari Om and warm welcome to all those who are able to join us today for this lovely conversation I'm going to have with Shailaja, who I'm known for close to 20 years, I think so. And it's like we are all like a lovely family. So so I would be happy to share my accidental experience. I keep saying that because at 16, it was sort of an informal introduction to a philosophical lecture, a lecture on Gita. But my father took me there because I had a flair for the language. I was very keen on the English language, and the speaker was a great orator. And he said, "You will like the language. You come and listen to him." But that evening, to be frank, the message actually blew me away. It actually hit me like a storm. And all I can say that I had such a fascination, an immediate fascination to the message that came across in a large audience. It made a lot of sense, so much sense that by the end of that session and by that evening itself, I decided I want to pursue this. If you ask me, did I know what it was? Something innate in me told me this is what life should be. And I still remember soon thereafter telling my dad that I don't want to go through the routine mechanical existence of what little I have seen till then. I found there was more to life. This is not all what life is. And I'm so ever grateful to my parents for having allowed me to plunge into the unknown and explore something which I discovered all by accident. If not for them, I wouldn't have been in this field. It has been a wonderful journey, as you said in the brief profile. It's not the number of years, but close to 30 years have rolled by, and it's been a fascinating journey. It's an inward journey. It's an inner discovery, and through the process of journey, you come across wanting to you share these ideas. You want to convey this wisdom, and in the process, I keep meeting wonderful people like you. So I keep increasing my family circle wherever I go, and that's what I'm so happy to share this little wisdom and then increase my family circle. You see, so it's a beautiful experience. I would say that's the wisest decision I had taken in my life that evening.
Thank you, Vinayji, for that beautiful introduction on your introduction to this incredible field. It is truly an amazing and impactful decision to have at the age of 16 taken that decision. And like you said, I mean, it's even more wonderful that your parents supported you, because even today, which is like 30 years from when you took that decision, I mean, even now the pressure is on kids to get a job, do the regular things. But you really took that road lesser known, and your parents supported you through that journey, which is very incredible. So pranams and great respect to your parents for having you really supported you through this.
Really appreciate it.
And yes, you do have a family wherever you go. So you do definitely have a Malaysian family.
Yes. Malaysia is a huge family I have there. Yes, very much.
Yeah. So, which is why, even after you are in India, we're still having these conversations with you.
Absolutely.
So let's get back to the questions. I'm sure we'll have many more questions coming up along the way. So for those people who, when you mention Vedanta, everybody thinks of it as this really something that, they cannot relate with. it's like considered a very niche area where only certain people with a certain bent of mind, will understand that. For everyday people, this really doesn't relate to them. And so I just want to have a little bit of introduction on Vedanta so that people realize that it's really something so necessary for everybody, to live well in their lives. Right? So, like I said, the mind is really the key, and to manage the mind well, all this information and philosophy really help shape our mind. So, just I thought we could just explore a few key concepts, and these are all concepts that I have learned from you along the way. But just to share it with our listeners, like mind versus intellect, because we talk about all these terms along the way. I'm sure you'll be talking a lot about all this. So, just to give that base and foundation to the subject.
Wonderful. So the question I would begin by answering is, what is Vedanta? As you say, it really daunts many people, and they don't seem to understand what is this knowledge, and if at all it has any relevance to our lives, what role does it play? Now, let me make it as simple, as down to earth, as relatable as possible. See, in very candid terms, Vedanta is nothing but a knowledge which deals with your life and living. An instruction manual to life. A knowledge which is very profound, very scientific. It deals with the concerns, in fact, concerns at any period of time. It is known as Sanatana Dharma, which means eternal principles of life and living. Now, though they may sound high-flown words, but I would only say that it is nothing but which deals with your life, it deals with your living. In fact, it is nothing but a manual to life. It gives us, if you ask me, in connection to the topic we are talking about, Vedic wisdom on relationships, to hit the nail on the head, the manual to life precisely gives us the ability to relate with the world. The biggest mistake I would think humanity has made so far, the biggest mistake is we have not understood that life or living is an art. When I say an art, you being a yoga teacher, you have evolved being as a yoga teacher. Yoga is an art. Not everybody could do it. Singing is an art. Doing carpentry is an art. Playing an instrument is an art. So also living life is an art. So when I say an art, we need to learn it, how to live, and then practice it and perfect it. Now, since we have not understood that living is an art, why have we not understood? Because we have never been told that living is an art and you must learn how to live, and there is a manual to life. You need to learn this manual to live it. So everybody is actually lost in ignorance. And this principle or this Vedanta or this manual you're talking about is actually the art of your relationship with the world. If you want me to put it in much simpler terms, one of the fundamental principle or the first principle of life we all should understand and learn and live by the rest of our lives is, it is not what you relate to that matters, but how you relate to whatever you relate to. And this should be taught at a very young age. It's not what you relate to, but how you go about relating to whatever you relate to. And when I say what you relate to, the world may not be a pleasant place. The world may not be a happy thing. There may be things that go your way. There may be things that don't go your way, especially in a marriage or any relationship for that matter. There may not be 100% compatibility. In fact, there's nothing called as 100% compatibility. Is there anything 100% compatible in life? I don't think so. Isn't it? With a little experience of life, I realize that there's nothing compatible, isn't it? So you will always find things that doesn't fit into you, that doesn't go the way you want it. But yet you find that the world has a system, and you have to learn to get into that system, integrate yourself with that system, and create a harmony or a peace within. And it is that art of relationship we are talking about. And in fact, the beauty of it is, just this morning, I was actually cutting my nails. And I realized my nail cutter, there is that filer, which you use to just file your nails. And I realized the filer had been it has gone beyond its lifespan and it's become little smooth. So I was actually struggling to file my nails, and it took a little longer to file my nails. Now, a simple thought there. Don't you need a rough filer to smoothen the nails, the sharp nails? You need a rough stone to sharpen your knife. So don't complain if life is tough, if life is demanding, if life is challenging. In fact, that is what precisely you need to sharpen your personality. But you need to know that knack, you need to know that art, you need to have that manual so that you will present yourself to the challenging world so that you blossom as an individual. And sadly, this is not taught. Now, when I talk about it's not what you relate to, but how you relate to, the question is, with what are you relating to? That's important. Now, when you deal with the world, when you interact with the world, there are two wondrous equipments every human being is born with. There's this physical body that is just a mere structure, a physical body, a mere vehicle. But within that structure, within that vehicle, there are two equipments that drive your system to contact the world. So the entire dynamics of life, the entire complexities of life, the entire solution to life is trying to understand what drives me, what is driving me. Am I being driven by the mind? You use the word rightly so. Am I contacting the world based on my mind, or am I contacting the world driven by the intellect? And that reflection, that realization has to happen. I hope that happens today. And I'll try my best to convey that message.
Yeah.
So precisely, in short, what is the mind? Mind is nothing but which consists of your feelings or your impulses or your desires. In the context, I would say mind is nothing but your expectations, what you want. And the intellect is that which takes right measurements. It gives you reasons, it gives you logic, it tells you what things are. Intellect is nothing but assessment. So here there are two contrasting aspects within us. One is the expectations, other is the reality, which is the assessment, which is the facts of life. Now, if you contact the world based on your expectations, if you contact the world based on what you want or what you desire, and the world is not going to present what you want always, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's not always going to be. When the situations and circumstances behave and cater to you, are happy. When they don't cater to you, are unhappy. So you can continue to contact the world, demanding, complaining, asking for why is the world that way, and fail to take a measurement as to what is the world. Now, when I talk of assessment, it is very important. Now, I'm into an organization. I'm dealing with people day in and day out. It is very important, not what I expect people to be, rather for me to find out what are the kind of people I'm dealing with day in and day out. I need to understand them. I need to assist them. I need to take a proper measurement as to what they are. What is their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What can they offer? What they can't? And then deal with them properly. But as long as I have my expectations throwing at them, I'll only be complaining and grumbling. Now, I'm reminded of a lady. I'm laughing at this when I say this. This lady constantly goes through phases of hypertension. She gets hysteria. She goes mad, and then she finds every occasion a reason to contact me so that she lets go of her frustration. And the bottom line of that is she is very clear. She is very sound in her understanding. She says, my husband is a confirmed lunatic. So she says, he has psychiatric problems, he's a lunatic. Now, when you understand him to be a lunatic, What else can you expect from a lunatic? That he will not make sense. He will be erratic. He is unpredictable. He may behave in a most unpredictable way. Then why, if you have not accepted him and assessed him clearly, you will have no convulsions every time you have a dialogue with him or any interaction with him. The house is a mini battlefield, isn't it? So if you understand that the world is going to be tough, it's how you relate with it, what you relate with it. Are you relating with expectations or are you relating with assessment? And I must say, Vedanta is a branch of knowledge which gives you clear guidelines how to live life. And it is not meant for that little niche people whom you may call them as sannyasis, who have nothing to do with the worldly life. They are tucked away sandwiched in a woods or somewhere in a protective environment of an ashram or a resort or a retreat themselves into the woods. It's not meant for that minuscule percent of people. In fact, Vedanta is meant for grahasthas. And I'm proud to say I have lived 20 years of happy, married, peaceful life. So what more you want? It's not that many a time people...
from experience.
In fact, no, what I mean is many people say, Swamiji or Guruji, what do you know about it? You are not married. You don't have a family to run. You don't have children. You don't know this. But I'm talking from experience, and I've lived a life of family. I have a kid who is 15-year-old, and I've seen what it is to grow up a child, to mold a child. I know the dynamics of a family, but yet I will confess that you cannot manage life without this knowledge. Believe me, I keep pondering. It just baffles me. How are people carrying on with life without this knowledge? With all the knowledge I have, with what little knowledge I have, I can tell you, life can test you at times. But without this knowledge, wish you the best. That's all I can say. So the crux is, are you contacting the world with your expectations, or are you making reasonable assessments and accepting? You must know who is a mother, who is a mother-in-law. You must know the contrasting natures. Who is a daughter, who is a daughter-in-law. You must know the differences. Who is a friend, who is a foe. Who is a benefactor, who is a malefactor. You can't expect people to be... You can't be naive. You can't expect the world to all the time do good to you. No, the world has different types of people. You need to know what they are, assess them properly, and make the right relationship. And that clarity, that wisdom is what Vedanta gives, which is different to knowledge. As you rightly asked, what is the difference between knowledge and wisdom? And to be frank, we are in an era where we are inundated with knowledge, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Touch of a finger, you will get all what you want in a little tool in your palm. You have the world at your fingertips. That's the era we are in, aren't we? But everybody is a Mahaguru nowadays. Self-acclaimed gurus. So we know so much about of many a thing. But the problem is we are not able to live it. There's a beautiful saying, wisdom attains completeness only through living of life. So that completeness is only when knowledge translates it into your life. If it doesn't translate, it is mere information, but it is not true transformation. And it is not just applicable to Vedic principles, it is applicable to all walks of life. I can tell in fact, I remember going through a medical checkup, just a checkup. So you go through the basic test. So I had to spend, I think this was 6-8 months ago before the lockdown. So now you would dread going into any clinic for a checkup or a hospital. You wouldn't want to get anywhere near that. But for one of my routine checkups, I had to spend 3-4 hours at a clinic just to go through everything. My medical annual thing I would go through. So there was a particular doctor who was with me for 20 odd minutes for the stress test. So they put you on a treadmill, and then you plug you all whatever they have to plug, and they measure certain heartbeat and whatnot. And I was walking, and then the doctor was saying, "Can I increase the speed, Mr. Vinay?" "Yes, please, by all means." And then the speed increased, and we're walking, and we're having conversation with him. And the conversation I've been having with him is, he's a full-fledged doctor, and he's talking all the while about financial investments. He is giving me a lecture on financial investments and how much money he has made. So I got into good friendship with him, and he's giving all his financial details to me, how much he's invested in that company, convincing me that I must start investing into provident fund and whatnot and what this. And that guy is also advocating health to me. Actually, I should be sitting in his chair and he should be doing a stress test. The guy was like this. He could barely walk, that fellow. And he's younger to me. I could gather all the information. Now, here is a doctor who knows all about health, can advocate health, but he has not practiced it in himself. I would say
Knowledge
that is the
and
difference.
wisdom.
I'm sorry?
Knowledge and wisdom.
That is the difference between knowing things and living it. So when you have the knowledge, you live it. When you don't have it, you will talk about it. Okay.
Beautifully said. So just a couple of things that came up during your conversation. Actually, I was listening to another talk that you were doing. So this was something that you said that really struck me about how people think that Vedanta is something that you enter into, right? Like post-retirement, you finish your life, you have nothing else to do. Okay, so then you start, talking about scriptures or listening to some scriptures. So you talked about how the point I want to make is that Vedanta is something that actually you should be exposed to before you enter into the arena of life. So I thought that was a really important point to bring out about how it's not just for post-retirement studies, but it really allows you to deal with life. Like I said, it's really ultimately our lives about perspective, and it gives you such a different perspective and the tools to manage and relate with life. So as early as possible, Vinayji himself is his example about starting off at 16 before he jumped into the life's arena. So that I think is an important point. So a lot of people think, oh, young people won't be interested, or they don't encourage their children, to listen to philosophy or read philosophy. So I think everybody should really start their children quite young.
I would
And
say beautifully summed up, actually, younger the better.
Okay.
As I've said, it's instructions of life. You learn how to live and then live life beautifully, isn't it? Why complain about life?
Exactly. Yeah. So instead of getting hit and beaten and, falling off and, all that, then, okay, what do I do? Right? How do I get back out on? Then if you know all these things in the beginning itself, it helps you to ultimately it's about choices, right? And you strengthen your intellect to make the right choices.
Very
then
true.
even about, even about the mind and the intellect, to just put it simply, like some people ask, so I just say, like, it's like sugar, right? So if you see sugar, like generally, unless you're some kind of a health freak, but generally the mind likes sugar. So you're instinctively drawn towards that. But the intellect is what will tell you, right? That what is your diabetes level, whether it's good for you right now. Maybe sugar is so great for your inflammation. So that's how they function, these two different elements in us. So to be able to see the functioning of both, to be able to see your mind wants something regardless of whether it's good for you or not, and then to see the working, because that voice is always there within us, telling us, cautioning us, telling us that that's really not the right thing to do. So to see the working, that's constantly working all the time, especially when we have to make choices, which we end up doing really on a moment-to-moment basis. So we'll just go to the next question about Vedanta's view on emotions and how they affect our relationship. So sometimes people are like, emotions are a terrible thing, and because of emotions we suffer, etc. So ultimately, I think it's just like management. So just your views on what.
In fact, coming to emotions, in fact, I would say a Vedantin is actually misunderstood. And glad you asked this question, because here's an opportunity for me to clarify. Having led a Vedantic life, I know what it means. So onus is on me to clarify what actually Vedanta says. See, what Vedanta says is that it's a blessing to have an emotion. It's a human nature to have emotions. Not to have a feeling or not to have an emotion is like being a piece of dead wood. Don't they say, are you a dead wood? Don't you feel anything? No. It's not that Vedantins don't feel, but there's a difference between having an emotion vis-a-vis being emotional. Emotional is when your emotion goes out of control. When you're not able to harness or manage your emotions, that is when emotions become troublesome. So Vedantin is one who has the best of emotions. In fact, Vedanta helps you to chasten your emotions, helps you to purify your emotions, brings the best out of you, whether it be whether be it charity, whether be it forgiveness, whether be it pity, empathy, sympathy. You have these feelings. You have to have that feeling for others, that love. It also helps you to control them so that you don't go overboard. I can take a perfect example is when your emotions are not under control, in fact, that is what destroys a relationship. It is not the emotions that destroy. When you're not able to control your emotions destroy the relationship. I would actually compare emotion to be a stabilizer transformer. All of us see transformers at the end of certain localities. You find in every junction, you find in a district or in a small housing area, you have a transformer. What is the purpose of a transformer? You find there is a step-up transformer and a step-down transformer. That's all I know about electricity. I can't go any technical beyond that. But all
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me anything either.
No. So what does help of a transformer or a stabilizer? What it does is it regulates the electricity. Imagine there is no system that can regulate the power supply which is coming from the high power grid, the high power lines which bring electricity to the city, to the homes. Imagine if there is no system that regulates it, every gadget in your house gets burned, gets blown up, gets destroyed.
Absolutely.
So the emotions is like that high power grid. You must have the best of emotions. But if you don't have the intellect to be able to step down or step up when required, it will destroy a relationship. So that is what is Vedanta. Vedanta says that you must have a feeling of identification. You must have this. But just because someone loves you doesn't mean that person must agree with you all the time, isn't it? Each one has their own opinion to believe what is right, what is wrong. Now the question is, how well do you handle that disagreement? How well you learn to accept, assess, and adapt to that disagreement. So Vedanta helps you to deal with that. One is to feel it. It is yet another thing to have mastered it or be affected by it. So Vedanta gives you, in fact, that freedom to feel for whatever. In fact, it helps you to feel. It also protects you from being affected by it. Just like if you take an example of a river flowing, and whenever there's monsoon, there is heavy rain, the river swells. But it is the banks of the river that keeps the river within it, isn't it? But when the same river swells and overflows the banks, it inundates the homes and fields and destroys livelihood, isn't it? Exactly the same way, the emotions must be always well kept within the control of your intellect. And when the emotions go overboard, when the emotion swells and you have no control over it, they become a curse. So what is a blessing turns into a curse. So it helps you to control it. At the same time, it helps you to chasten your emotions. And this is what Vedantic take on emotions. So please don't misunderstand that Vedanta has or discourages to have emotions, or Vedantin are like a no feel at all. Now, if you call me for we're having get together, a family occasion, I won't invite you. I'll be more than happy to join. Why not? I should feel happy for you. What gives you joy should give me joy, isn't it? It's not, oh, is it? I am not interested. I'm sorry. Vedanta, I am interested in the higher. Interest in the higher means, don't you feel for people? It shouldn't be that. You're very much down to earth. You feel, but then you have perfect control over them.
So I have some comments from here. I think this is your student talking about your emotions. Vinayji, you're full of life and love, so cheerful, Guruji, all the time. So I guess it's a reflection of your attitude as well. So I guess very important points that you brought out about how just because we study Vedanta, it doesn't mean that it's against emotions or not having emotions. And it really helps you, one, to manage your emotions and to really chasten it as well. So to the next question, what is love and how is love different from attachment?
Oh my God, you seem to be hitting nail on the head. You're hitting the bullseye. I must say
This
that.
is our topic, right? How can there be
Yes,
relationships, and love is such an integral part of any relationship, right? Like, so when I
absolutely.
say love is not just like a man woman kind of love, but really love is the basis for all
Any feeling.
relationships,
Yeah,
right? From
absolutely.
student to your child to your pet to, people on the street. I mean, it's just different shades of love, right?
As you talk of it, so beautifully connected, Shailaja. In fact, one of my students, in fact, you also know her from Malaysia. I just happened to see Facebook page her comment today that she lost her dog, I think
Uh-oh.
yesterday or today, and 12 years it was a part of their
Ah,
family, and sadly she passed away. And when I saw that, I felt sorry for that. You can't say, oh, just a pet
yeah,
or just a dog. No, you can't dismiss like that.
yeah,
You
yeah.
have that feeling. So in fact, love in fact is very, very essential. Love is that which binds it, and attachment is that demolishes it. So to hit the nail on the head, what is it that builds and sustains a relationship is pure love. Adulterated love is attachment that destroys it. When you adulterate it, it becomes attachment. Let me clarify it. Love is nothing but to feel exactly what another person feels. Is nothing but genuine identification with other person. What gives you love, what gives you happiness gives me happiness. What gives you sorrow should give me sorrow. If something is giving you joy and I'm not happy about it, means I don't identify, I don't care about you, isn't it? That is not love. Love is to feel exactly the same what another person feels. Example, your husband comes back home from work after a long day because the husband has been preparing on a project, and that was the key day, the moment where he was going to present, and it is make or break day. And he comes back and he doesn't reveal anything, and he comes with a bouquet and a cake, and he say, let's celebrate. We've got that order. It's a huge thing for the company and for the future. Let's celebrate. So you're so happy with it, and you call the family, you cut the cake, you enjoy, you spend those lovely moments, you share the joy. And after things settle down and you go back to your room and you're together, the wife holds the husband's hand and say, I'm so happy things are working out well. When are you going to buy me the diamond jewelry necklace you promised? You see that? Now, what is the wife doing? She's encashing the love which the husband is giving to her. The husband says, I feel so happy to share this news with you. Instantly, you want to encash it for yourself. And this is attachment. Adulterating love is attachment. Can't you just feel the love? That man is sharing love, of his joy with you. Can't you just feel it? Why are you bringing in your selfishness into it? And it is this selfish relationship in any attachment that breaks it. And I appeal to all those who are there to be very, very, what's the right word to use? Please lend me your ears. Please spare a thought. Please examine it. It's a very pertinent point. If you have noted this point, you have got the message for the day. What builds and sustains and maintains a relationship is love. What demolishes it is adulterated love. So in short, you can say love is nothing but, what is love? How would you define love?
Vinay, I'm talking to you. You have to give the answers.
No, I will give the answer. I'm only questioning to the audience just to make them think. What is love? Love is nothing but your attachment minus the selfishness. Okay, let me define it. What is attachment? Your love plus selfishness, isn't it? What is attachment of the wife to the husband? Her love for the husband plus her selfishness. Diamond necklace. So attachment is love. I'm sorry?
I said other demands also.
Yeah. It is just just an example.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the attachment is love plus selfishness. So what is love? Love is nothing but attachment minus selfishness. So you take away the selfishness from a relationship, you will have pure love. So the concept of love in the world today is attachment. It's not love. It is conditional. It is not pure and unconditional. As long as you lay conditions, you will pay the price. And humanity is paying price for going through the struggle in maintaining relationships, is because they're all having a conditional relationship. It is a business. It's a barter. It's a trade. And no business can flourish. You will have good times and bad times, and no business will all the time flourish. So there will be times where so bad that you will have to shut down, and that's where relationships snap, relationship break, because the other person doesn't give in to your demands. So if you can, so this is what I said, Vedanta helps you to build chaste emotions. Vedanta gives you the ability to love someone for what they are, not what you want them to be. If I say, if I say I love you because you're doing these things to me, if I say, oh, Shailaja is a wonderful lady, why? Because you're talking all good about me. Let's say I come to know that, I wouldn't say this example because I know you're so dear to me with lovely family, but let's say, for example, you say something bad about me, or somebody talks bad about me. They're tarnishing my image. What is my thought to them? Instantly, would I hate them, or would I still have a feeling for them? Would I say, they don't understand me entirely, therefore they have misunderstood me? Do I have a feeling for them? But if somebody caters to me, I say, I love you. If somebody doesn't cater to me, say, I don't love you. I don't actually love you because of what you are. I love you because you are catering to me. So in effect, I'm loving myself. I don't love you. This is attachment. So I think if we can bring in clarity into our lives, am I truly loving my family, truly loving whatever I'm loving, or am I having a selfish love, which is attachment? This clarity can seal the concept of relationships, Shailaja.
Yeah. I just want to say, you put it so brilliantly and so strongly as well, about attachment. So I just want to add on a little bit to that. It's the same thing, right? Most relationships these days, we have to look into ourselves, right? This whole journey of Vedanta, even yoga, is all about going inward, right? And we have to see our motivations, our intentions. And if we'll realize that most relationships are conditional. Right? You do this for me and I'm there. If you stop doing this for me, I stop being there. Including like relationships between, in marriages, including relationships between friends. So I always think the purest relationship really, that too is quite diluted in many places. But I think most unconditional relationship we have is with our children. And that really helps us to connect to, what is unconditional, right? Usually, however bad the child is also, we still love them. And that unconditionality is what we should strive to bring into other relationships. Like if we can understand what unconditionality is, then we have to strive to bring that into other arenas and relationships of our lives as well, including husband, wife, friendships. And the more unconditional, like you say, the more purer the whole relationship becomes. And that awareness and consciousness, I guess, is what Vedanta gives us, because otherwise we're just living and it's in the name of love, right? We blackmail people, we manipulate people. Really, you hear of all these stories, right?
Yes.
And you see these relationships and everything is like, if you love me, then you have to do this. If you love me, you have to do. You have to cater to people, right, in the name of love. So okay, I'm going to stop there. So
no, I can see the wisdom flowing. I can absolutely see that.
No. The next question is actually very related to what we were just talking. It's like, what seems to be the problem today in terms of relationships, say marriage, and how is love distorted, right? It's really what we were talking just now about, the distortion of love, and how can the principles of Vedanta left. So, I think we really covered it, but in case you want to add something, feel free.
In fact, I would love to. In fact, why are relationship snapping? In fact, going back to the concept of love and attachment, this seems to be a simple solution for a complex problem everybody is going through. Are you establishing, you got to ask yourself, are you establishing a selfish relationship or an unselfish relationship? That's important. So are you a giver in a relationship or are you a taker? Remember, in life or in any relationship, no taker is wanted, no taker is accepted. Only givers are accepted. So when you are operating with the spirit of unselfishness, you say, what is my duty? You say, what is my duty towards my wife? What is my duty towards my child? What is my duty towards my parents? What is my duty towards my guru or my colleagues or my company, etc.? So there is a spirit of what can I serve? How can I be of help to others? But the moment the accent shifts to what is my right, you are selfish. Then you are claiming conditions. And as long as there is the spirit of service, relationship flourishes. The moment the spirit of right slips in, the relationship struggles. Even to salvage a relationship, even if one person has the spirit of giving, you can salvage a relationship. But the sad part is both are takers. In fact, you know why people get into a relationship? Right before they get into an agreement. In fact, marriage nowadays is an agreement. Very sadly to say that. But even before they get into a marriage, I know many people who don't want to get into a marriage. They have these live-in relationships. That's a new thing today because they don't want to be bound. I can't understand that. It's a very auspicious temple. Marriage is a beautiful temple. How can you have no purity about that? How can you even suspect it? But you know, how does the concept of falling in love, as they say, as Vedanta keeps saying, you should not fall in love. They say you must rise in love, isn't it? You fall. So why do you fall in love? So it is when they start dating each other, each one is catering to each other all the time, isn't it? You like this, I take this. You like this, you take this. And keep on giving into each other. And time will come where you can't do. What will happen? That's the time relationship snaps. You forgot my birthday? Finished. Before that, they're all the time giving into each other. You know, so it is very important to ask this question: what is it that creates the various relationships in life? In fact, I'm reminded by the very famous words by Adi Shankaracharya. If I may chant the verse from Bhagavad Gita, you know, it says, Shatrau mitre putre bandhau ma kuruyatnam vigraha sandhau sarvasminnapi pashyatmanam sarvatrotsruja bhedajnanam. I will only refer to the first half of the verse, and perhaps if opportunity demands, I will go to the second half of the verse by the end of it. The first half of the verse, he says, do not get into any hostility or friendship with either a shatrau, enemy, mitre, a friend, putre, son, bandhav, relative. So he says, there are 4 types of relationships you have created in life. Either you have an enemy or a friend or a son or a relative. You know, all these relationships we have created, you know, he says from the most distant to the most dear. From an enemy to the son. What is it that is created these 4 distinctions in relationships? If you carefully examine, it is your own selfishness. You have an axe to grind. That is what that creates a relationship. That is what creates this shatro, mitre, putre, bandhav. Look at the great Adi Shankaracharya saying it. You have created these categories because of your selfishness. If I have no axe to grind, what is the big deal? All are one and the same, isn't it? Why would I create an enmity? What is the difference between a son or a relative? They all one and the same. So very beautifully Adi Shankaracharya says it. But again, going back to it, if you operate on the principle of giving, you can flourish. A relationship flourishes. But if you go back to the principle of taking, it destroys. So be a giver, not a taker. And many people are takers in relationships. Therefore, relationship is struggling. This is the hard reality of life today. Okay.
I think it's really beautifully, very, very clearly said. Truly, the spirit of a relationship is in giving, and really, it's about being able to think about the welfare of the other person. When we give, rather than only thinking about what is it that you want out of this or how you are not being catered to. and just to be a bit relaxed and easy about it and accommodate the other person and the other person's personality and nature and desires as well. So there are many questions coming up here. I'll just take a couple. One is from my cousin Prakash, who says, living without expectation doesn't imply living without an objective or purpose. Does it imply that? Okay.
No. I didn't say that, nor does Vedanta say that you should not have expectations. Prakashji,
Okay.
what Vedanta is saying is, if you go back to the initial stage, I said mind operates on expectations and intellect operates with assessments. So when you assess a particular person or a situation or a circumstance, you will be able to rationalize your expectations. You need to make your expectations as realistic as possible based on people and circumstances and situations. You may be a team leader. You may be in a team of 10 people, 20 people, 50 people. Each person, each individual has their own personality. Each one brings in their own plus and minus, their strengths and weaknesses. You should be able to assess their strengths and relate to that properly. You should also be able to relate to their weaknesses properly. And that is where you align your expectations. So we are only saying that not to expect. Please, it is wrong to have unreasonable expectations. It is right to have reasonable. Make them reasonable by having clear assessment. And assessment comes with an intellect, and intellect is a product of wisdom, not mere information. So the society lacks the wisdom. They only have information. And therefore the appeal is that we need to learn these eternal principles so that we build that inner wisdom which comes through the strength of the intellect and the clarity of thought. You have a very clear assessment. In fact, let me take this example which is often said. Bernard Shaw, those who have heard me, it resonates with them. Bernard Shaw was once asked, who is the most intelligent man he met in his life? And Bernard Shaw remarked, the most intelligent man I met in my life was my tailor, because he's the only one who takes fresh measurements whenever I go to him. So I'm only telling, the Vedas are saying, Vedanta is saying, just go about living life with fresh measurements. A lady came to the center just before the session began. And when she came, there was overcast conditions. And when she was leaving, it started pouring. My only concern to her, Amma, I hope you have an umbrella. And she said, yes, Guruji, I have an umbrella with me. You must be prepared for whatever the circumstances are, isn't it? If you didn't bring an umbrella with you, you would only get drenched, isn't it? I'm only saying make proper assessments. Don't complain. Why does it pour? The beauty of monsoon is its pause, isn't it? The beauty of winter is its biting cold. The beauty of summer is its heat. And also that lady should say, the beauty of my husband is his hysterical nature. Accept it, assess it, get along with life. Prakashji, I'm again reminded of a very famous reference of Socrates. I think Socrates was once approached by a student, asked this question, should I get married? And he was known for his witty answers, And Socrates said, by all means, you should get married. But remember this, if you get a good one, you'll be a happy man. If you get a bad one, you become a philosopher. So if you find some philosophy in me, thanks to the 20 years of, I will choose not to go to home today because I'm going to pay a price for this statement I made. On a lighter note, but so beautifully said, isn't it? So you got to take it in your stride.
16, so it's okay.
Sorry?
You cannot blame your wife. I said you started philosophy at 16, so that's your getaway.
No, but the only thing is the philosophy I have is just getting better. If I am making a mark, it's because thanks to, as they say, there's always a lady behind you, isn't it? So that's the credit. Thanks to Socrates. Right. Okay. I hope that serves, Prakash.
Yeah, so there's another question by Chandran, who you also know very well from here. So, Guruji, with the great knowledge that Vedanta imparts to us, we realize that impermanence in the fleeting nature of the world. So, could this lead us to lack of interest in the world and being self-driven and ambitious?
No, see, Vedanta only presents greater facets of life so that you embark on greater journeys. You can't be fascinated with the toys that you were fascinated when you were a child. Would you be? I know people who still do. They still play with video games. They still play with TikToks and whatnot. I do not know what TikTok is also. Please forgive me for that. But you can get fascinated with things
now
like that.
yes.
It's banned now in India. But see, Vedanta. In fact, one of the beautiful qualities of evolved person is he has a certain dispassion for the lower. Why does it develop that vairagya? Vairagya is the dispassion, the disinterest, as you rightly said, because he has developed a passion for something higher, something nobler, something grander. He wants to fulfill a larger purpose of life. He understands that life has a purpose. Life is not just running about acquiring and enjoying. There is no end to that, isn't it? Your mind keeps driving you into having desires, and there is no end to it, isn't it? So you understand the hollowness of worldly pursuits, and you realize that they have a greater purpose, a larger purpose. So then you embark on a life of building. You build relationships, you impact relationships. In the process, you evolve. You take others along with you. But if I fall a victim to my own negative emotions of anger, greed, hatred, jealousy, and then if I am suffering, if I pull myself down, if I go down and I take those who are near and dear, my relationships also to go down with me, do I have that moral responsibility? Is it right to do so? So don't I have a moral responsibility to grow and take people along with me? And for that, you need higher knowledge, you need greater wisdom, you need greater insight, so that you are able to reach higher echelons of perfection, higher states, so that you leave a mark, not just for yourself and your near and dear, but for humanity at large. So people can take a mention of your works and it should resonate and it should inspire them. So Vedanta only gives you that direction, and the highest being self-unfoldment or self-realization. And interestingly, that is the very purpose of our lives, Chandran. So don't be worried. If you're in the journey, you're doing very well to yourself.
Okay, so I'm going to take another question by a very favorite uncle of mine, Ignatius. So he says, how do you manage loneliness, Vinay? I would like to know.
I would, sir, what's his good name?
Ignatius Jacob.
Okay, Mr. Jacob, lovely, you could join in. Now, here's a subject matter you're asking me. In fact, just a few days ago, I spoke for over an hour on the topic from loneliness to aloneness. I would request you, if you don't mind, go through that session. It is there on the Wisdom Foundation channel. It has got all my videos. It's already there for your viewing. Kindly go through that. And if it sets a chord, if it resonates well with you, well and good. If it doesn't, Shailaja will give you details of reaching me. I'm very much available. I'll take all the time to clarify that, but it's all out there. In fact, that is the thing that is concerning everybody, that state of loneliness.
Absolutely.
So all I could say is it comes from inner strength. I did mention in the talk, silence being the same, it can create transformation to some, it can madden some, it can destroy them. It's how you again relate to that silence itself. So it is an art. So again, I appeal to you. Sorry if I can't get into the detail because it would be time consuming. I would refer to you. Please go through that and come back to me. I'm always available. I'm reachable. Okay.
So I'm going to go back to our question. So we were talking about principles of Vedanta and how they can be applied in parenting to build a good relationship with our children, because our whole topic is about relating, it with different kinds of relationships. So we're just moving to relationships with children.
See, and I am talking as a parent now, not as a guru or a teacher. Now, as a parent, you always realize that as a parent, you always keep finding fault with your children. You keep complaining that they have become too independent and they've become too impertinent to you. You also say that you seem to have no control over them. You're not able to stop what they're doing. In fact, they have stopped relating to you, isn't it? This is a common complaint. And you must understand, this happens because the parents have got tremendous attachment to their children. There is a selfish relationship. There's a tremendous attachment, and you develop a tremendous possessiveness towards the children. So there is an attachment and possessiveness. And because of this possessiveness, you're not able to treat them as independent individuals. You're not able to respect their decisions and choices they're making. And this causes a lot of trauma within. It's not how wise you are, how well informed you are, but you are able to feel, the moment you feel that sense of restlessness, then you already fallen a victim to your own attachment and possessiveness. Now, also you must understand that children are very sharp. They're very smart. They're able to pick up things faster. They're also able to adapt to change much faster than you. So you can't adapt to change. At the same time, you can't absorb the knowledge much faster. And this creates a disparity between you and them. And above all, the only way of controlling your children, you start imposing restrictions, restraints, and suffocate them. Isn't it? And this only retaliates. They retaliate because this is an unnatural way of controlling. So my little advice, nothing is mine in this, please. The Shastras, in fact, in the 3rd chapter of the Gita, he says, Yadyada charati shreshtaha tat tat eva itara janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanu vartate. The 3rd chapter of the Gita, he nails it there. He says, whatever a leader does, that alone people follow. Whatever standards he set, others emulate. So just on parents and children, please respect them for what they are. And please understand these 3 essential points. First is, remember to set an example for them. If you want them to do something, you do it yourself first. If you want, that's the hardest part. Let's say simple thing like you tell your children early to bed, early to rise. You tell them get to bed early, and in your bedroom you have got 50-inch plasma TV with all the possible streaming into that, and you are sleeping in your couch or in your bed, and you're having live streaming of many things, Netflix and whatnot, And then if your kids come into your room, you say, you haven't slept yet? It is 10:30, you have to go to school tomorrow. You're giving them a lecture. And what about you? I sleep at 12 o'clock, 12:30, sometimes 1 o'clock because beautiful movies come. Now what's happening? You are making a double mistake, aren't you? You are not following what your kids to follow. At the same time, you are sermonizing. So this is a double fault, and you can't win a game of life by making double faults. Can you? Like in tennis, you make double faults, you lost the game. So the double fault of your relationship with children is this. You don't set the standards and you sermonize. So the opposite of that is just lead the way, set the example, and don't lecture to them. No doubt you can give an advice here and too, but don't take to lecturing as much as I'm lecturing to you. I should not take to the lecturing mode. Just because I lectured you, I go home and start lecturing to my child. Sometimes I do. Then I remember this. Oh, oops! I have to play the role as a father, not as a guru. First principle. Second principle is you must understand the difference between freedom and licentiousness. Every being on this earth wants freedom. So also your child wants and is pleading for freedom. Please give me the freedom to live. Respect the child for what the child is. Growth is only possible where there's freedom. Isn't it? Growth is only possible where there's freedom. But when that freedom is not punctuated with any discipline, it becomes licentious. So don't impose them. Give them the freedom, respect their choices, but the punctuation of discipline comes by the standards you have set. Isn't it? Lead the way. The third point is lead the way. Are you a role model for your child to follow? Or has your child picked up some other role model from the society out there? And that has happened. That means you have not impressed your child enough to consider you. that is hard luck for you. You can't blame the child for that, because you have not impressed your child enough because of your own contradictions. You don't walk the talk, as they say. If you do walk the talk, you will certainly be considered as a role model by your own child. So lead the way, inspire them so that they can emulate you. There's a saying, child comes out whistling if the mother goes party all through her pregnancy. Imagine the mother all the while went partying through a pregnancy, the child will come out whistling. So what standards are you setting for the child? That's important. So this is the take Vedanta says as a parent. Set the right tone. Don't give a lecture to them. Don't impose. Don't force yourself onto them. As the law is, anything forced is never forceful. So you are being unnatural in molding them this way by forcing your views, thrusting your views on others. Just leave them, give them the freedom, punctuate with discipline by the standards you set. They will grow by considering you as a role model, and they will reach higher perfections. But it needs great objectivity as a parent, and that's where you all falter, isn't it? So it is. So you need these Vedantic principles if you want to relate with your child well.
Yes, very well said. So really respect your child. I think that's a huge takeaway to, I think we just see children as extensions of ourselves, and we don't see them as separate individuals worthy of their own thoughts, their own aspirations, and we end up trying to force and control them. So I think that's a huge takeaway from here. And I think the bigger takeaway is also really to walk the talk. So if you want your child to wake up early, you want your child to exercise regularly, you want your child to eat right, I think we have to do that first. So there's a lot of responsibility on us as parents to really do the right things. And those of you who are wondering, our talk is usually is around an hour, but today we're just going to extend it maybe to 1.5. So just in case you're wondering. So the next question is, how do the Shastras, it was actually very interesting that Vinayji was telling me that the Shastras not just talk about, relating to people and relating to children, but it also talks about, relating to material wealth, etc. So I thought that was a really important thing, because these are all the relationship issues that we face with, people, money. So material wealth is a great area to explore.
Again, I'm surrendering to the great Adi Shankaracharya in Bhajagovindam. He says, Artham anartham bhavaya nityam nasti tata sukha lesha satyam putradapi dhana bhajam bhitihi sarvatraisha vihitaritihi. Oh my God, it just nails it. Hats off. The very first two words of that verse, he says, Artham anartham, he says. And if that strikes a chord, even without me translating, those of you understand it, you have got it. He who sees it, sees it. But for those who don't understand, don't worry. He says, Artham anartham. Artham is wealth here. He says, wealth is a calamity, he says. Anartham, he says. Now, how many of us look at wealth as a calamity? It is very, very difficult to even conceive someone who knows how to deal with wealth. And wealth being one of the primary objectives of life, every purpose, every effort people do is to acquire. Acquisition, one of the primary objectives of life. And why do people acquire? If I can actually, in a way, interact with you, I tell you, it's a wonderful journey. Just to not lecture to you, but interact with you. That's how the style I firmly believe in. In fact, perhaps someday I'll tell Shailaja to have an interactive session with the students. If she considers me worthy of having another session, please, we will have an interactive
Always,
session.
it's my honor, Vijay.
Thanks, Shailaja. So he says wealth is a calamity, and the primary objective of life is acquisition. Why is everybody acquiring? Everybody is busy acquiring with the primary objective of for what? To offset their own mental insecurity. Everybody believes the more I have, the more secure I will be, isn't it? And there's a beautiful saying, I'm actually quoting, where he says, money has never made a man happy yet, nor will it. There is nothing in its nature to produce happiness. The more a man has, the more he wants. Instead of filling the vacuum, it creates one. Remember this, the more you have, you will only fall a prey to wanting more. And is this not highlighted in the famous epic Ramayana? Ravana had all the wealth, he had everything, he had a harem from the heavens, yet he wanted Sita. Remember, your mind also is like the Ravana's mind. My mind is also like the Ravana's mind. That is the very nature of the mind. You can't change it, I can't change it. But you must only learn to control it, discipline it. You can't change its nature. If a cow has a black skin and you have the skin in your hand and you keep scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing, will it lose its blackness? That is the very nature of the skin. You can't change it. Similarly, the very nature of the mind is it has desires. It keeps craving for more and more and more, and that destroys you. So people don't know how to relate with wealth. And how is that relationship? They think the more I have, the more secure you are. In fact, why is it that wealth cannot offset this security, or the insecurity rather felt within? Because I can't, in fact, this is again last year, Guru Purnima 2019, I gave a talk, Search for Security. I'm not advertising myself. I'm very bad marketing. I'm just reminded of it. Again, there is this talk out there. If something inspires you, please go and help yourself and tap this lecture, Search for Security. And in that talk, I mentioned wealth is a gross commodity. The mental security or insecurity or the loneliness or aloneness is a subtle aspect. Gross cannot control the subtle. Gross cannot influence the subtle. So any amount of gross you can have, but it's not going to offset the mental insecurity people have or people feel. There's a beautiful saying, iron and gold are good for buying iron and gold. That's all. So with iron and gold, you can't buy anything beyond than iron and gold. Money can be the husk of many things, but money is not the kernel. It's the husk, it's not the kernel, please. Money can give you food, but money can't give you appetite. Money can give you servants, but money can't give you faithfulness. And he goes on. So all you got to understand is, there's a beautiful saying, I think I think it's Goldsmith. I could be wrong. In fact, one of them said that. He says, I think Oliver Goldsmith, he says, where wealth accumulates, men decay. And all what you're doing is you're acquiring and hoarding. And where wealth accumulates, men decay. Where there is wealth, you have access to indulgences. And when you lead an indulgent life, you have destroyed your spiritual personality. You start decaying. So people don't know how to deal with wealth. And yet, in Hinduism, wealth is worshipped as goddess Lakshmi. What an irony, isn't it? The same Shastras say wealth is a calamity. The same Shastras worship goddess Lakshmi. So it is how you learn to relate with wealth. There's nothing wrong with wealth per se. Go back to the first principle I said in the beginning. It is not what you relate to, how you go about relating to it. So if you don't know how to relate with it, the very same wealth will destroy you. The very same wealth will become a blessing in your life. Goddess Lakshmi comes into your life. How you relate to it? All my appeal is, don't gain the world and lose your soul. Don't bargain it. It's not worth the bargain. So there's so much more to it, how the Shastras talk about how to deal with wealth. Again, as I said, it's there in the talk, Search for Security, but you have enough insight. It's just the outhouse of this knowledge I'm presenting, how to deal with wealth. Sadly, it is not taught because we don't know how to deal with. We'll have financial crashes after financial crashes. History has proven again. And what is the reason financial crash happens? It is human greed. Have you been able to control your greed? You long ago met your needs, but your greed you haven't controlled. Why? You don't have the intellectual strength or the wisdom. You don't have this Vedantic manual, which every householder should have, every grihastha should have. It's not meant for some sannyasi sitting out there. No doubt they are in a different realm, but here's a manual which you and I should learn and live by. So, how to convert wealth from a calamity to a worship? There's a solution. How you relate with it, with the wisdom. Yes, Shailaja.
Okay, so very beautifully explained. The basic message I'm getting from all the different areas that we talk about, whether it is love, whether it is emotion, whether it is wealth, that ultimately, which is why this topic is so important, because none of it in itself is, evil or a bad thing. It's really the way we relate to it. So ultimately, it really comes down to that, learning how to relate to all these different things. Like they say, a knife can be used to kill someone, and it can also be used to cut vegetables. A knife in itself is not a bad thing. Similarly, none of these things that we've been talking about is bad thing, but it can destroy us if we don't know how to relate to it. So understanding that and being conscious of the way we relate to it is really, I think, a huge takeaway. And Vedanta gives us that wisdom to relate to it well. So this is a question from my friend Shanti here, and she says, how to handle exploitation when we keep giving, and takers only take and never give back. So I guess it's the hard part for the giver. If you're in a relationship where one person is always taking and one person is always giving, then, after a while it can be a strain on the giver. What is the attitude, or how should she relate to that whole situation?
Now I can understand where you're coming from, Shantima. See, giving doesn't mean a passive attitude. It's a very aggressive stance of where you feel for the recipient and give. Now, as a mother, would you ever take the stance and say that my child is constantly taking from me? From the moment the child is born, the child is constantly receiving so much from you, demanding, crying, complaining, demanding, wanting it. Would you ever say, my God, what a mistake I've made wanting to have a child? The child is all the time taking. Would you ever say that? Because you have that concern and love and identification. You understand the child needs it, you give it. So you take that matured stance as a mother and you give it. Now, I would only say bring that maturity of a giver into a relationship. Conquer that expectation and conditionalism. Be a true giver. You will never be any less. You will never lose. You will never suffer. Look at the law of life. A giver is always taken care of. A giver is always provided for. It's only the takers that suffer. So, but that doesn't mean you should be passive. Be intelligent in your giving. You must understand that intelligent giving is what we're talking about. It's not being a doormat where people will abuse you and you become a victim of their actions. So please don't expose yourself to be a victim of others' actions. No, Vedanta talks of being from a point of strength. Be a master in a relationship. Don't be a slave in a relationship. So be a giver and be a master of it, not be a slave. I know these could be very poetic words, but it only empowers you being a giver. So don't fall a victim for it. But don't ever shift your stance from being a giver. From the question, I understand you are enjoying being a giver, but your concern is, am I being exploited? No, don't worry. Just be smart enough that you don't become a victim of others' aggressiveness. So you also have to be aggressive. Be aggressive good. In the Vedantic study, there's a concept of being passive and aggressive. The aggressive bad will overpower the passive good. In the Mahabharata, Duryodhana was aggressive bad, and Dharmaraja, you know what Dharmaraja means? Yudhishthira was given the title, was known as King of Righteousness. King of Righteousness. So even a man of that caliber of having dharma fell a prey to the manipulative mind of Duryodhana. So in order to handle the manipulative mind of the aggressive bad, your goodness alone will not serve you. So you must become, from a passive person, you must become an aggressive person. Aggressive good was Lord Krishna. And that is what the wisdom we are learning from the Shastras. Don't be passive and complain. Adorn the role of a giver and be an aggressive giver. Be a master, not a slave. All right, Shantima, think about it.
Beautifully said. So I really think it's like you're just giving it consciously because you want to give, and you're not, the situation, that person, like you said, if you know the nature of the person that you're dealing with, then you can handle it better, and you cannot expect anything, but you're just giving for the sake of giving.
Yeah.
That's very beautiful. Very, very beautiful. And I'm just going to go. I was saving your last question. We're almost reaching 1.5 hours. I really think we should wind up this session, though there are
Yes.
many questions that I have not explored yet. So we saved the best question for the last. So those of you who have held on are really going to get the Sara or the essence of this beautiful talk and this beautiful session. So how do we relate to our own self?
Wow. How do we relate to our own self? In fact, throughout the talk, the accent has been our relationship with the world, isn't it? Whether be it
Yeah.
things or beings, you are dealing with the world out there. So, in the process, you should not forget yourself. So, the entire process, the art of relationship actually stems from the ability of perfecting the art of managing and balancing one's own personality. And the only way you can relate with the world well is only when you have related with yourself well. As I've said, you must learn to master oneself. It's not the question of mastering the world, but you must learn to master oneself. So the question is, how do you master? What is there to be mastered? So the Shastras talk about getting a control on the overall aspect of your personality. So you have your actions and perceptions, you have your emotions and thoughts, and then you have your spiritual aspect to discover as well. So how do I deal with all these? Let me quickly go through. As I've said, as Shailaja has said, that we are coming to the end of it. I will not go into the further detail. I'll give you a panoramic view of it so that you have food for thought. But believe me, true transformation comes in only when you have learned to manage and master yourself. So the first level of control is at the physical level. Do you treat your body as a junkyard, or do you treat your body as a temple? Your body is that which receives the various stimuli from the world. Your eyes see, your ears hear, your skin touch, your tongue taste. Are you putting all the junk or the rubbish from the world into your system? Or are you filtering out with your intellect and receiving all the good out there? So what you need to practice is self-control. You can choose to receive all the rubbish out there. You can choose to see all the divine out there. The choice is yours. I can choose to eat all the rubbish. I can choose to eat the most healthiest. The choice is mine. So that quality of practicing damaha, self-control or sense control, it doesn't mean you must deny yourself of enjoyment, but you must control your senses so that you start treating your body as a temple, as you treat it as a vehicle which serves you, and your vehicle must be kept in good repair. I recommend you to go to Shailaja's classes and perfect your body. She'll help you perfect it. She is actually my yoga guru also, so I look up to her. So at the physical level,
You are just
if you sorry, Shailaja.
You are just being too kind, Vinay.
No. So sweet. So you when you don't respect your body, when you lead an indulgent life, you reach a state what is known as neutralization. You have lost the joy of life, of relating with things. I can't go into detail. Every one of them are indulging and leading a life of neutralization. They don't know what joy of life is. You have abstained from 9 months for eating a mango. When the mango season comes in summer, don't you enjoy the mangoes? But how many of them can claim to enjoy the mango throughout the season? When it comes, you indulge in it. You lost the charm. You must learn to lead a life of little discipline, little restraint, little control. So at the physical level, you live a life of self-control. And in fact, the perfect example is Lord Ganesha. Lord Ganesha, if in Hinduism, you see Lord Ganesha has a great taste for food. And when Ganesh Chaturthi comes, Lord Ganesha, you serve plenty of food, isn't it? And at the feet of Lord Ganesha, you see a rat, don't you? A rat with a laddu in the hand is looking up to the Lord, asking permission. can I, may I, please. Ganesha is just looking straight, unconcerned. So the rat is eternally asking, can I? That is control. You understand? So don't fall a prey to the temptation. So at the physical level, you must inject that discipline, master yourself. At the emotional level, you must try to develop chaste emotions. Don't let feelings like anger, hatred, jealousy, envy to come into your system and destroy you. Entertain the attitude of forgiveness. Be kind, be noble, be charitable in your thoughts. Charity is not parting with money. Be charitable in your thoughts, in your words, in your deeds. Forgive other people. You will be able to forgive yourself of the trauma you put yourself through. So at the mental level, you got to conquer your negativities and instill positive emotions. That is what I said earlier. Vedanta is misunderstood. Vedantins have emotions. They have pure emotions. It's not that they don't become emotional and they don't get into negative emotions. At the intellectual level, you must learn not to cram your head with information. You must learn to develop wisdom. I've already clarified with reference to knowledge and wisdom. Wisdom is that which helps you to handle your emotions, handle your relationships. And ultimately, at the spiritual level, you must realize that you have to discover yourself. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to the human race. By realizing yourself, you lift the entire humanity. Christ said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Do you realize that? Do you know that? And by doing that, you bring the best out of you. You shine as a gem in the human race. So that is the very purpose of life. And lastly, you must understand that you must learn to develop a spirit of detachment to everything that you relate with. Life has a grand purpose. Life has a grand mission. And if you want to serve that purpose and fulfill that purpose, you must start relating with things with a spirit of detachment. And the spirit of detachment is simple. Please write down this. The spirit of detachment is in these simple terms. Every relationship in your life must be a means to an end. Every relationship in your life must be a means to an end, not an end in itself. When you treat anything as an end in itself, it is attachment. You suffer the consequences. But if you use it as a means to an end, you are converting the relationship into divinity. You're making it divine. You evolve. A simple thing, we all need to eat to live. But you don't live to eat, isn't it? If you live to eat, it is an end in itself. But if you need to eat to live, it's a means to an end. You all need money to live, but you don't live for the sake of money. Means to an end in itself. So if you bring in that spirit of detachment into all that you relate with, whether be it your family, whether be it your children, whether be it your the people, your friends, whether be it your wealth, whether be it your health, whether be it the emotions or the intellection, whatever you deal with, you bring in that spirit of detachment. You will have the Vedantic wisdom shining through. You will become a role model for others to follow. Thank you very much. That's all I got to say. Wonderful. You all could join. Yes,
Thank you so much, Vinay. Thank you for this really beautiful, enlightening, insightful. I'm running out of words to describe how really useful this session was. And I'm sure all the listeners who have been with us, I'm so grateful to see so many of them. They have stayed right till the very end. Nobody's really switched off and gone. And I'm sure it's because they're so gripped by the truth of what you speak. Yeah, I think, like you say, the truth of the Shastras, you always never take any claim for it. And you always, always relate it back to the Shastras. So the truth of the Shastras really resonate with each one of us. So thank you so much for, your time and your patience in so patiently explaining all this to us. So those of you who are listening and who would like to connect to Vinayji, you should know that he actually takes classes and gives lectures. He also does corporate workshops. And right now, I think he has a Bhagavad Gita every Sunday at 11:30 a.m., which is India time. And there's also a Bhaja Govindam class every Wednesday at 6 p.m. India time. And I have the details here of his email and website, which I'm just going to display here on the screen. So those of you who are interested, just hold on for like 1 minute more and you can get his email address. Also, Wisdom Foundation, I think, is there on Facebook. I think Vinay ji is known as Vinay Kumar on Facebook. So there are many ways that you can get in touch with him. And you can also contact me in, if you know me, and then I can always give you his contact details. But do wait for just a minute and, get his email and website, everything, etc. So I'm going to wind up this session. Thank you so much, Vinay ji. Again,
Thank you.
So much gratitude for your time and your patience.
Pleasure always. So,
and your wisdom.
Thank you. Namaskaram.
Vaishnav, can you just put that?